Well, hello there, Dippers, and welcome back to episode 34 of the Knuckle Sammich podcast, the official MMA podcast of Sauce on the Side. As always, Dippers, I'm your host, Drake, joined by the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Thomas R. Shackelford.
Happy Repeal Day.
Mr. Shackelford, we have a lot to get to today. Actually, we will discuss the hose job, which was Wilder versus Fury. We will break down the fight cards from last weekend, headlined by Junior Dos Santos and also Kamaru Usman, picking up very, very big wins for their UFC outlook moving forward. And we will actually talk about UFC 231. You will give your official picks, and we will also make some announcements of fights that are coming up that you guys can look forward to kind of down the stretch, coming into the new year. But before we get to any of this, Latency, producer, you know what to do. Welcome to the Knuckle Sammich podcast with Thomas R. Shackelford, a Sauce on the Side production. All right, Mr. Shackelford, first, let's go ahead and talk about this fight, man. I feel like this is what a lot is wrong with boxing. We had Deontay Wilder versus Tyson Fury, basically a fight of giants. As far as the names go, as far as the people themselves, a lot going into this fight. I felt like basically the future of the heavyweight the heavyweight division in boxing, for a long time, the heavyweights were boxing. Now these two are the heavyweight class. They can bring, the heavyweight division back into boxing, back to the forefront, kind of make the future of boxing swing with these guys and as they go. Excellent fight. One of the best boxing fights I have seen in a very, very long time. One of the few boxing fights we have mentioned on this podcast. In fact, the other fight that we had talked about, their first fight also ended in a draw. Wilder Fury, 12 rounds, absolute knockdown, drag-out, draw. What were your takeaways of this fight?
One of the best. It's got to be one of the best boxing fights ever. But as far as the heavyweights go, I mean, you had two dudes. They laid it all out there. Neither guy held back. It was an amazing fight. Even with the really terrible decision, I don't think it really marred anything. I think people are just looking at it, just what an amazing fight, As far as the score goes, if my math's correct, I heard it put like this: with those two knockdowns, Deontay Wilder would have had to have won, because those were 10-8s in boxing. A knockdown's an automatic 10-8 round, and I believe if you get like another knockdown, it's a 10-7. And I'm not sure if the fights have the three knockdowns in a round and it's over. I think that's a stipulation some have to have. But anyways, those were automatic. He had two automatic 10-8 rounds. That means in order to get a draw, he would have had to have won three other rounds. 10-9 rounds. I didn't see it. As a matter of fact, I don't think anybody saw it. From my point of view, I thought the story of the fight was essentially Deontay Wilder in spurts was coming forward trying to land the looping shots, and Fury he's such a good boxer. He moves well on the outside. He fought well on the inside. His jab was stinging Wilder all night. And I don't know if you were amazed by this. I haven't really got your input on it, but how impressive was that jab to you?
Oh, it was ridiculous.
It was crisp. You could hear it cracking every time, and it didn't look like he was.
I actually watched this fight with Latency, and he can attest to it. Like in the first round, as soon as Tyson Fury came out there, I was like, man, his jab looks great. His jab looks great, and
it's
right
like
then
effortless too. He just flicks it. It's just a flick.
And we were watching the fight with a guy who had boxed for the majority of his like young adult life, and I had to ask him. I said, "How in the world does a guy get power
off of that flick jab because it's kind of unorthodox, you know. It's almost like you remember those old school like Bruce Lee videos where Bruce Lee is basically just like flicking the dude.
Yeah,
and it's like a Bruce Lee type jab, and it was stinging him all night.
Another karate guy that was real famous. That his name was Bill Superfoot Wallace, and I actually bought an instructional video on him like way back in the day, and the way he taught it was like you keep your elbow low at your waist, and you just basically raise your elbow, then extend your hand out like a little backhand, and it can be really quick. But man, just the movement of Fury. He's such a big, bumbly looking guy. It's just hard to believe. And even in spots, he looks like he's out of position. And then as soon as Wilder would come in, he just moved one way, the other way, circled off. He just didn't touch him. I actually gave the 5th round to Wilder. As I was watching it, I kind of scored it. And that was the round, I think about a little over halfway through, they said the punch count. I think Wilder had thrown like 19 and Fury had thrown 9. And basically I felt like maybe Fury just kind of took that round off and gave it to him.
That round was a staring contest.
It was. I mean, none of those punches really landed for Wilder either. That's the other thing. I legitimately think that Wilder maybe only landed 3 punches all night.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the other ones, they grazed off of him. But when you looked at the CompuBox stats or whatever they were, they had Fury only outlanding Wilder by like 7 punches in every category. But when I watched it, I thought his punches were landing. He was avoiding punches. It should have been a landslide. You know, the announcers thought it was a landslide. I did give the 5th round a 10-9 to Wilder. Then obviously, what was it? Maybe the 8th was the 8th round, the first knockdown. And
8 or 9.
It was a quick one. It was a quick knockdown. Basically, Fury only stayed down to just catch his breath. It glazed right behind the ear, and then in the 12th, when that one knocked him dead, it was actually the exact same combo. Wilder all night was throwing the looping right hand, and then for whatever reason, those 2 times he threw it about as straight as you could throw it, and it clipped him right behind the ear both times. Oh man, what did you think when he went down? When he went down,
I thought the fight was
like
over.
That?
I thought the fight was over. I thought he was knocked dead, and then immediately, as soon as they said 6, I don't know if that was just like, you know, his key word to just wake up, but he just like opens his eyes and basically like an Undertaker in the middle of the ring, like just rises from the dead and comes back. And had that not been scored a knockdown, he'd have won that round because he pops him with a big hand, and then immediately Wilder is sitting there like holding just to survive.
Yeah. That was nuts, man. What a fun fight! Even with that decision, I feel people are just looking at it like, hey, these are the best 2 heavyweights in the world. Like, now we get this again, probably.
Yeah, you know, my biggest thing, though, is that the last 2... What are the 2 biggest fights we've had probably in the last 5 years?
I would Triple G and Canelo, probably both of those, and then the McGregor-Floyd one, actually, would be... But... I get where you're going. You know, Canelo Triple G was a draw, and the first one was pretty clearly a Triple G win that they gave to Canelo.
And then this fight, we had another draw, and
the first one. It was the first Canelo Triple G was a draw, right?
The first one was a draw, and then Canelo won a pretty horrible decision.
Close one. I actually heard people saying that the second one was actually a draw. And the first one was a pretty clear Triple G win.
My biggest takeaway of this, so the two of the, as far as just strictly like actual boxers, a legitimate boxing match, the 2, as far as first fights, the 2 biggest fights we've had in the last 5 years have both been draws, which just makes it strictly a money grab. And in my opinion, like, you cannot have this if you're boxing. If a guy if it's a draw, so be it. But like, I need to see where there's a clear route to a draw, even if it's a close route to a draw. Now, had Wilder had another 10-8 round on there where it was definitive that he had won another round other than just the big shots that he had landed, I'd be okay with that.
You definitely can't pick 3 rounds.
No, cannot pick.
There's no 3 rounds in any way, shape, or form.
Absolutely not.
He won a 10-9 round. Maybe one.
And if you look at the odds, it is so hard to score a fight as a draw. Whenever you have all three judges going at it, like it's a setup job. You can't tell me any other way than it's just a setup job. And let's say if it wasn't the judges and Wilder and Tyson Fury took the middle of the ring and we found out that it was a setup job 6 months later, what would happen?
Be another fight.
What happened to the last guys that had a setup job in the MMA? They went to prison.
Oh, yeah.
They went to prison. There's a lot of stakes that's going into this. Like if fighters are if they're going to fall under the same umbrella as the announcers, as the judges, as the referee, if they are all in this as one, you have to treat them the same way.
That's just boxing. I mean, and that's the crazy thing is that's what pretty much it was like. Everybody's just like, oh, that's boxing.
And that's terrible. And you know what's bad is that a guy I follow, Tommy G. He's a big time gambler. He said, guys, if you believe in fixes, he said, bet and he's a big time, like he wins money. He wins a lot of money, and he knows what's going to happen 9 times out of 10. He said, if you guys believe in fixes like I do, bet the draw with me. And he bet the draw, and he was completely right. Plus 1,200. Plus 1,200.
Oh my God!
$1 wins you 120.
That bastard.
Yeah, I didn't see it until after the fight. Otherwise, I'd have probably been on it too. I actually bet on Tyson Fury. I'm going to bet on the better boxer every single time, and that was clear. Deontay Wilder is great. He's great entertainment. He's great TV. I'll watch him anytime he's fighting. But he's not that good of a boxer. He's a better brawler.
He's athletic. I don't think you could put that dude in any sport on earth.
Yes,
and he's probably going to be.
I think
whatever the top level is, he'll be there. I know Fletch said that he played college basketball. Now he's also got like 8 kids or something. So I think he had a couple kids and had to drop out of. But we're talking about a dude that I don't have any doubt. I don't know where he was going to go to college or where he was in college. I don't know his basketball skills, but I see a guy that's only been boxing for like 3-4 years, and he's like 49-0, and he just knocked down one of the best heavyweight boxers of all time, basically losing the fight all the way until the 12th round, and then gets another knot. That dude could play any sport. You could throw him in table tennis, and he's going to be one of the best table tennis players in the world. But as far as boxing goes, it was Fury. And it should have been a Fury win, and you're right. There's no way on earth I would ever pick against the better boxer. Ever.
And you know how they say...
Unless the odds were nuts. Like when McGregor's, the odds were like, you bet, almost like that, you bet $1, it's like $1,000 type thing. Then you'd be stupid not to just go ahead and throw a couple
and you know,
bucks.
honestly, this was kind of the same build, like the same fight strategy. You had some loopy punches by one guy. The other guy sat in the pocket, dodged him up here and there. And then you look at their scorecards. What does it say? The exact opposite story of what 2 of the 3 judges had for this fight, which is an absolute hoax job.
You just never.
This makes me mad. It makes me never want to watch another boxing match or pay for one again.
It's definitely hard to bet on him.
Yes.
I mean, even we'll use the McGregor Floyd thing again. So in that fight, I think McGregor was down every round on every scorecard. Now you think, well, yeah, he was losing the fight, but that first round, Floyd didn't throw one single punch.
Yeah.
But yet won the round. Second round, I think he threw like 6 punches.
You need to have some people with common sense.
But yet won the round. I mean, Brendan Shaw, but when he said it was... So one of the scorecards, I don't know if you saw it, it was actually 115, 111 for Wilder.
Yeah, that's unbelievable.
So when I added my scores up, I actually had it 115, 111 Fury. But this other judge, one of the judges scored it, he basically said that Fury didn't win a single round, basically. It was where he was headed there. The way Shaw put it was like, if you're going to be crooked, at least don't make it look crooked. He's like, some of these scorecards and some of these judges, they're like the kid that you and your buddy are going to cheat on a test together. And you're like, hey, man, you've got to miss a couple questions.
Yes,
you've got to miss a couple questions. No, he just goes all in. He's just putting the exact same answers as you. It's a written test. He's writing word for word every single thing verbatim. But still, unlike the Triple G and Canelo, it didn't ruin the fight for me. And you're right. It is a money thing.
It did not ruin the fight, but it almost ruins boxing.
Yes, a lot of people.
The fight's great. I'll take that fight over 90% of the 99% of the MMA fights I watch.
Yeah.
But as boxing as a whole, it puts a bad taste in my mouth.
It does, and a lot of people were watching this that were first time watchers. You know, when the Paulie Malignaggi, which I only knew him from the McGregor Mayweather thing. I love listening to him break down fights, and as long as he's not talking about McGregor, like, he's actually a really fun personality to listen to. But nobody breaks down fights quite as well as him. He was basically, I think he said, he was like, I'm disgusted. He's like, I can't even do my job.
Yep.
He's like, we just watched a fight where a guy won, 10 of 12 rounds and somehow got a draw and actually lost huge on one scorecard.
Yeah,
so
and
it's not just me. It's not me. It's not you. It's not all the people that are pissed about it. We're talking about a dude who was a world champ who boxed since he was like 2 years old. He knows what he's looking at.
Absolutely.
And he scored it 10 rounds to 2.
And they asked Floyd Mayweather after the fifth round.
Yeah.
And you even gave Wilder the fifth round, benefit of the doubt. And Floyd's sitting over there saying, you know, Wilder's going to have to do something. He's down 5-0.
Yeah.
He's going to have to do something.
The pound for pound greatest defensive boxer ever, the dude's never going to lose, is ringside saying, hey, he's down every single round, and they still come out and say it's a draw.
Yeah, and as you're talking about guys at high level that, we're talking about guys that are phenomenal boxers that are talking about this and disgusted. Well, I know as far as just casual fan goes, like, you guys are pretty weak on Twitter as far as, actually giving some pushback to Shackelford and I. And I tweet about a lot of fights. And there's as casual as a fan that there is, almost every time I talk about a fight, every time I say anything about any of the fight stuff that's going on, always like favoring and retweeting, that kind of stuff. I'd made a tweet about the fight, like, how in the world does Tyson Fury get hit 3 times and lose a fight? And his response was, I've bought 2 fights, 2 boxing matches, and I'm done with them. And you know what the other fight was?
What?
The first Triple G and Canelo.
the draw, that poor bastard. Another thing, I heard that it was like $79.99 for that fight.
Yeah, it was expensive.
That's 2 MMA pay-per-views.
Yeah, and to watch a host job, I could watch it. This is terrible.
You could watch WWE. You could buy the WWE. You could buy 5 years of WWE streaming service for $80.
If I want to watch a host job, I can watch that. And this makes me mad. This really makes me mad because I know we hadn't talked about this at all. Really,
I'm bummed you lost money on it.
Well, I bet on Fury.
So do you lose money?
I lost my bet. I
Oh,
lost.
it does lose the bet?
Lost my bet. And he was a dog, significant dog. I put a good amount of coin on him. And, I'd won.
Tough.
I won on college football, took everything that I'd won from college football, placed it on him, and he lost. And it makes me sick.
Yeah, that's tough. That's real tough. I hate it. You know what's going to happen now?
Even if it's like, if my personal scorecard or your personal scorecard is within 2 rounds of them, I won't even be mad. But we're 4 rounds apart from these guys.
Yeah. And I don't know what's going to happen next. I know Wilder. So we talked about Anthony Joshua a little bit. His managers, I don't even think he was ringside. Like, they're basically keeping him, his handlers are keeping him as far away as possible from both these guys. So now, again, people, unless you're in the UK or you're like balls deep in boxing, you may not know who Anthony Joshua is. I don't even really know who he is. I know I've seen a couple of his fights. I honestly felt like Fury, even after the fight, he was calling Joshua a chicken and stuff. I feel like Fury wants Joshua, but Wilder is technically still the champ. So if either of them are going to get Joshua next, it would probably have to be Wilder so they could line up those titles. But I say screw it. Don't fight Joshua. Just fight each other again. The payday's going to be bigger. The buzz is bigger. You already know both guys respect the shit out of each other. it's going to be another good fight. Who needs Joshua at this point?
You don't
needs
need
him. You got the two best guys fighting for the WBC title. Forget the other lineal titles. Get them out of there. If he wants to fight a bunch of crumb bums on a streaming service with, like, to put it in perspective, Anthony Joshua, he's on that DAZN. You remember me talking about that?
Well, yeah, you brought it up.
I didn't
a lot
know how to
lately.
pronounce it. It's like DZONE or DZON. It's DAZN, like da man. So it's the worst name for a streaming service ever. I heard they only got like 18,000 viewers for Anthony Joshua's last title defense.
Wow, that's pathetic.
That's horrible.
If I'm going to look at MMA compared to boxing, I look at two guys, Ben Askren and Anthony Joshua. Okay, that's all I need to tell you about boxing. Ben Askren has been fighting his ass off to make it to the big dance, even though he's getting paid more. He's getting paid he was getting paid with one, like he was making killer paydays, and that was a big reason why everybody had said it. But he felt like he had something to prove. Boxing, they're just in it for the payday. Yeah. They're the Aaron Rodgers of the world. It's like, give me that fat paycheck, and I'll sleep on it. I don't care. Yeah. Take it. Get rid of it. These guys have some pride about them. And you look at Ben Askren, he's been fighting for years, and he's finally getting his chance at the big dance, and he says, throw me what you have. Give me anybody. Yeah. Give me anybody. And Anthony Joshua and the rest of the boxing crumb bums outside of Fury, outside of Pacquiao, outside of Wilder, they don't want to fight anybody. No. And that's what's wrong with boxing. Matchups make fights. Matchups sell pay-per-views. Matchups make the money. If you guys really want to make money, fight each other.
The kind of difference between MMA and boxing there, one loss in boxing can end your career. I mean, it can be the end of it. If you lose, if you're an up-and-comer and you're 29-0, 20-0, 19-0, and you fight a veteran, the guy that's 50-10 or something, 10 would be insane. We'll say 50-3, and he beats you. You're just done. Like, those big promoters won't even look at you. They're like, oh, well, they couldn't get past this dude. MMA, it's different. Everybody has losses. So one loss, I mean, McGregor is still going to be the highest paid guy 10 times over if he loses out the whole rest of his contract. It's just a little different in the world. It's just really old school in boxing that if you have a loss, the pay scale drops substantially. You're no longer even considered for pay-per-views. You're fighting on, midnight FSN cards, stuff like that. So that's why they hide their dudes away. And they'll pat. I told the story about me fighting the dude, the kickboxing guy. I was
one of my favorite stories.
I was 0-0 and went up against a dude that was 15-0 in his hometown. That's just how they do it. To this day, if me and him fought in a parking lot, I'd beat his ass all over the place. But that night, in those gloves and all those stupid pads, he wore my fat ass out, and I couldn't go no more. So that's those style sports.
And here's my last thing on it, and then you could say whatever you want, and then we'll move on past this. We've eaten up a lot of time on it. Anthony Joshua. Okay, let's just say that this fight would have went in the right direction. Tyson Fury wins this fight. He fights Tyson Fury and he loses. Well, what does he have? He has a fight with Wilder lined up.
Yeah, how would you like that? How's your consolation prize?
But that's two significant paydays. Quit just fighting no-names. Give us something to watch. You get the two fights. If you lose both of them, guess what? You can still fight the crumb bums that you're fighting already. Yeah. You still have a big draw. You still have a big name. It's boxing. There's a handful of those guys. There's not a ton. So you fight one, you lose, you fight the other. It's a three-man weave set up for you. We're sitting here talking about MMA and how we have McGregor, Khabib, Tony Ferguson. All three of those guys will fight each other before 2020. I guarantee it. Yeah, I guarantee it.
There's a good chance.
It drives me crazy.
It's just a different world, man. And I would like it. I'll use them as an example again. Back in the late 80s, real late 80s, early 90s, you had Sugar Ray Leonard. Even Roberto Duran is there late, but you had Hagler, Hearns, and Leonard all in there. And they all fought each other.
Yes.
And I say Roberto Duran, he was a little bit older at the time, but he was still in that mix. You had four of the best boxers in the history of boxing at the same weight classes at the same time. They didn't run from each other. They all fought.
Yeah. So. No, I agree. I agree. And you can't call a draw in a world where we want a quick result. You can't.
Hey, the great white hype. The money's in the rematch.
I hate it. All right, we'll go ahead and move on to some real men. Well, I can't call Fury not a real man. Pictures say 1,000 words. Did you see the picture of those two whenever they both got their hand raised for the draw?
Where he's looking happy as hell, and his face
Wilder?
marked up. No, Fury.
No. Must not be the same picture I saw. The original picture where they first raised both their hands for a draw. Tyson Fury looks like you just stole $1 million from him.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, he looks more, whereas Wilder's just kind of like looking like, oh, I kind of got one here.
He was happy.
Yeah,
Wilder was like smiling, like, hell yeah, I pulled a rabbit out of my hat here, and Fury's standing there like, somebody just took all my money.
Yeah, it's because Wilder just got the Red Ryder BB gun, and Fury, it had Fury's name on it.
Yes, that's exactly what happened. And pictures say 1,000 words for that. All right, so we'll go ahead and talk about the fights from this past weekend. We'll hit on them quick because we don't want to run you guys into a ton of time before we give you the picks. Junior Dos Santos picked up a second-round knockout of Tai Tuivasa. Shogun Rua picked up a huge win as an underdog. Third round TKO of Tyson Pedro. Mark Hunt lost his last fight, rides off into the sunset on a all but beaten down horse. Lost to Big Pretty, Justin Willis, a decision. And then RDA got beat in a decision by Kamaru Usman. Biggest underdog win. Shogun, how was he able to pull that off?
It was another wacky Tyson Pedro fight. Pedro came out smashed him basically the whole first round. He did get stung a couple times, but he just kept hurting Shogun. Got a couple takedowns here and there, couldn't finish him. Then in the second, hurt him a little bit again, and it was like he started falling off a cliff. All of a sudden, he looked tired. Shogun started stinging him a little bit. I forget how it ended. I forget the series that set up, but basically, it almost looked like the OSP, except instead of spread over 3 minutes, it was spread over about 7 minutes. He came out strong, hurts the dudes, and then it's like once he doesn't get the finish, he kind of starts to fall apart. You see that in wrestling sometimes. You get a kid that almost gets a pin, and then he just wilts.
Yeah.
Don't know what to make of Pedro, man. 2 fights we've picked him. 2 fights he's looked like a world beater right off the bat, and then just kind of melted away. I don't know. His Muay Thai looked really good for this. They've been training him, and Tuivasa have been training out at Tiger Muay Thai out in Thailand. They looked good. As far as the Tuivasa, same thing. Came out, walked JDS down, touching him up. The whole first round, second round, basically the same thing, and then all of a sudden he gets hit. JDS hits him with that big right hand. He goes down. The stoppage was a little weird. JDS had mount on him and was swinging for the fences. Tuivasa wasn't hurt though. Like he was just, but he couldn't get out, and he was actually punching from the bottom as much as JDS was punching from the top. And they went ahead and stopped it. It super weird. It was one of those, like, the dude wasn't hurt, but he wasn't getting out either. So maybe that's why he stopped it. He didn't look like he had any jiu-jitsu. He was just going to lay down there and punch JDS until they ended it. And then the Big Pretty Mark Hunt fight, man. Big Pretty, bummer win for him, in my opinion. Basically, he backpedaled and jabbed Mark Hunt for 3 rounds, got the win. At some point in every round, Mark Hunt just dropped his hands and walked forward and was just eating jabs like they were ham sandwiches. And Big Pretty just ran away from him jabbing. So it was a win. Hate to see Mark Hunt go out like that. We did pick that one correctly, but it didn't raise Big Pretty stock at all.
Yeah.
I mean, he I don't know if he threw a right hand behind the jab ever. Like, he just simply, I mean, he probably hit him with 1,000 jabs, but Mark Hunt you can hit with a cinder block in the face. You ain't going to stop him like that. So Usman RDA went just like we talked about. Usman smushed him up at the fence, and just RDA just couldn't get away. So we lost the JDS pick. We lost the Shogun pick. We got the other two. Not overwhelmingly amazing fights, just solid fights and some solid ones as far as the rankings go.
Yeah, biggest winners of the night. I always like to talk about this because, guys' stocks fly through the ceiling off one fight, guys' ceilings bottom out. I would almost say that Shogun won as much this weekend as much as Kamaru Usman. Like, Kamaru Usman, yeah, his next fight may be a title fight, but you can make the argument that Shogun, he might have been the biggest winner of this weekend just off the simple fact that he's going to hang around.
Yeah, and with a name like him, anything can happen. Say Jones, Gus go out there, one of them wins, maybe Shogun gets one more win, and to be honest, he'll be right there. Because we've talked about it. 205, although there has been an upkick. You got Anthony Smith. You got...
I love that guy.
Dominic Reyes. You got... I forget the dude who just fought a cup... Johnny Walker. I don't know if we talked about him. Johnny Walker had a huge win. There's some really good new blood coming up. Really, the only one I think that's kind of poised for a shot right now is probably Anthony Smith. But with a name like Shogun, you're always right there. Somebody gets hurt. Say Jones and Gus gets hurt. Who do you think is going to get a call?
Yeah, it'll be Shogun.
It'll be Shogun.
Yeah, for sure.
So
no,
he definitely was the biggest winner. JDS is maybe right behind him because it's kind of a career resurgence. He just beat a young dog. Again, at heavyweight, he's right there. And then Usman, to many, he was already going to be right up there after Covington for the next in line. So.
Yeah, biggest winner or biggest loser of the weekend, Tyson Pedro.
Yes,
absolutely.
Tuivasa lost, but again, he wasn't knocked out. He wasn't hurt. It was just kind of a funky loss. His first loss of his career. Now Pedro's lost 2 in a row.
And it seems like the first time could be a fluke. Second time, like, this is the way you beat the guy.
It's a problem, yes. If you can weather the storm, then he's going to wilt. I really like the dude. I like his style.
Oh, yeah, me too.
I like his story. I just wonder if maybe he needs to... I know he's really close with... He actually trains... Hunt, Tuivasa, and Pedro all train together. I mean, they're like best friends. I don't ever want to say, like, oh, you need to find a new team. But there's got to be something. There's got to be something that just ain't clicking quite with him that makes him fold like that whenever it's getting real nasty. It's not. I don't think it's a toughness thing. It just may be a technical thing, and maybe just a game plan thing. When you're tooling a guy up on the feet, don't go for a takedown. When you're smashing a guy, when your Muay Thai looks better than Shogun's and you're smashing him around the ring, don't go for a takedown.
Yeah,
ever. There's no reason.
I agree with you.
And he seems like he gets pretty damn tired, like instantly off wrestling. Which if you ain't wrestled your whole life, that's what happens. So. Definitely biggest loser Pedro. Biggest winners. I'm Shogun. It's got to be Shogun.
I agree. So we'll go ahead and talk about UFC 231. Actually has a ton of really good fights. One that I'm most excited for, obviously, the headliner, Max Holloway. I am a huge Max Holloway guy. Loved him basically since he came into the UFC. He's blessed, obviously. You can just read that if you haven't seen him before. They're fighting featherweight title shot. Max Holloway, champion, fighting Brian Ortega. Max Holloway, minus 120 favorite over Ortega, plus 100, even odds for the dog. Who do you think's going to win this fight?
All right, guys.
I know you picked Ortega last time. I disagreed with you, and then the fight got pulled. So
I'm putting stipulations on this fight card. I'm putting myself in probation because the last couple cards, and they've been mostly heavyweight fights, but all the old dogs, except for Hunt, came out of the woodwork and trashed the young up and coming dogs. So for this card, I would like you to not bet. Bet on your own time. Don't listen to me. I'm going to go Ortega. And it's because he's my Mexican brother and he's got those baby blue eyes that are sexy as hell. No technical reason at all. No, for real. As far as stand-up goes, he's as tall as Holloway. I think his reach is the same. When you look at all his fights, he's kind of known as a ground guy. But when you look like the Cub Swanson, he was right there with Cub the whole time. Maybe getting stung just a little bit more, but he's got a really good defense. He's got mainly a boxing approach. He's got some hard kicks, not the most technical kicks, but he does a really good job at using a shell. And the thing I like about him is he's crisp with his boxing. It's mostly jab, cross. He'll throw some hooks in there, but it's almost like his coach Henry Gracie said it. It's almost like even when he's boxing, he's just taking in, he's like a computer. He's taking in this data of what this guy's giving him. And every time he comes at a different angle, he comes at a different speed. He's really good at throwing off-speed punches. It's almost like he's taking in data so he can use that shell, use his defense, and he's adjusting to what they're doing. The Moicano fight, it was an insanely close fight. He was probably, I think he was losing on the cards when he got the tap out, but again, he got the tap out. I see this fight, the first couple rounds, Holloway probably getting the better of him. Him using that shell, moving around really well, and then him either getting a takedown to a submission or maybe a scramble to a submission. There's also the question of Holloway's health. I mean, that was bad. They said it was from his weight cut. His sodium levels got thrown off. We've discussed the terrible weight cutting procedures of the Lockhart system of drinking gallons of water with no carbs, salt, just basically drinking a ton of water in order to try and your body push it out the next couple of days. It's just a glutton for punishment to your kidneys. It's no wonder their sodium levels are off. Health is a big thing in this one for me. You got a completely healthy guy who is maybe a shade not as good in the boxing, but his defense is really good. And he's got lights out jiu-jitsu and solid takedowns going against a guy that we don't know how healthy he is. And he's had trouble in the grappling department. So I see another submission win for Brian Ortega here. I think it's going to be a really good fight, though.
I think it's going to be an excellent fight.
I'm going to look for maybe a third-round sub.
See, I'm so hard-pressed
to pick against Holloway.
Yes.
I just wish I knew how healthy he was. At this point, all we've seen is a press conference. They had a pre-fight presser today. We haven't seen open workouts. His weight cut hasn't begun. The countdown video, they used old footage of Holloway, so we just don't know what we're getting from him. And anytime we have a guy that was unhealthy, had to drop, get hospitalized, I've just got to go. I got to go the other way.
Yeah, see, I'm a huge Holloway fan. And the thing that sticks out to me the most about Ortega is that fight against Clay Guida. Like,
I knew you were gonna. I watched that clip of that today, and I remember thinking, "Oh shit, that's right. I didn't like him at first because he beat our boy Clay."
Yeah,
and you popped in my head because I remember you texted me during that fight. That guy's not that fucking good.
No, he's not that good.
He got lucky.
He got lucky as hell.
But that's every one of his fights.
Yes.
When every one of those fights happens, you gotta think at some point it's not a luck factor. It's how he fights.
A flying knee in the last 15 seconds, I will call luck every single time.
I knew you were gonna bring that fight up.
And then he had another fight. I can't remember who he was fighting, but like he threw in a guillotine with like 20 seconds left and tapped the guy out.
That was Moicano.
Yeah. So Moicano. I don't buy into it. I think he's just gonna get touched out.
If he wins this weekend? Can we expect you to say, okay, he's a good fighter?
Yes. If he wins this weekend. I will say that. The only thing that scares me is that it's a 5-round fight, and we've seen him in the fading seconds of the third round catch fire, and if he carries that into the 4th and 5th round, yes, he can win. But I'm not betting against Max Holloway. Won't do it. Can't do it. Not this weekend. Second on our card, co-main event, flyweight championship, actually. Valentina Shevchenko versus Joanna Jędrzejczyk. Valentina is the minus 360 favorite, and Joanna is the plus 300 dog. Who do you have in this fight?
This is a tough one. So these girls have actually fought 3 times already. I don't know if you knew that. They fought Muay Thai.
I did not.
They fought 3 Muay Thai fights. You can get on YouTube.
That's what this fight's going to be.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, if you get on YouTube, there's about a 6-minute video. It's about maybe a minute, 2 minutes of each one of those fights. And they looked close. I mean, both girls were landing shots. Both girls were getting... In Muay Thai, you can take down. Like, when you're in that clinch, you can, like, trip them down. They were some intense... The 2 minutes of each one I saw, it was intense. We're probably looking at that again. I mean...
I can't believe these odds are so far apart.
It's going to be close. I really don't know what to make of this. They're both... I don't know how old. They looked pretty young in those videos. It's just about which one's improved more. Now, we've seen Johanna stumble a little bit against Rose, but other than that, she's dominated at 15. The weight cut's been insanely hard on her. I said, that first loss with Rose, I thought she should never go back down to 15 because she was saying that her legs were numb and she just was in real bad shape. Again, I think she used Lockhart for that. But here's what it's going to be. It's going to be Joanna moving forward, being the more aggressive striker, and Shevchenko's more of the counter striker. I almost want to say that Joanna's going to probably get up on the scorecards a little bit, but then maybe Shevchenko hits her with some big punches and puts her down. She's been fighting bigger girls. She's always fought either 135 or 145 since she's moved to MMA. So maybe Joanna's punches don't sting her as bad since she's been fighting the smaller girls. I don't know what to make of this one. This one, I feel like the odds should be dead even because it's going to be a dead even fight. I don't know who to pick, to be honest. I want to pick Joanna, but I got to think with those other 3 wins in Muay Thai, even if they were really close decision wins, I got to think Valentina's probably going to get it, and it's going to be one of those kind of weird fights where she sits back and she's just countering the whole time, almost like when she fought Holly Holm.
Yeah, I think this is one of those fights that I'm not going to touch from a betting standpoint.
Just because it's going to be so close. I'm glad you said that because this is almost an unbettable fight.
Yeah, if you look at the odds, like the odds are way further than what they should be. Like Valentina should win this fight. I think she will, but it's going to be such a close fight that I can't touch it. And I don't have enough confidence in Joanna to just say, go ahead and bet the dog, hammer it, because there is a puncher's chance. But I think it's just going to be a really, really close fight.
Well, and if she had one punch KO power, I would say that, but she's more of an accumulation. I mean, she really just, once she starts reaching those combos and touching you up, she just does not stop. And I could see it going either way. Don't bet that one. That one, if you're parlaying or if you're betting straight up, just stay away from that one.
No, I definitely agree. So welterweight fight, we have Alex Oliveira taking on Gunnar Nelson. Gunnar Nelson is one of my favorite guys to watch. Obviously, comes out of that Straight Blast Gym group of guys with Conor McGregor, obviously, and Lobov. Who do you think's going to win this fight?
Gunnar. I think this is...
I think this was pretty easy.
It is. I don't think Gunnar... I don't think Gunnar gets the notoriety that he really should just because he's such a quiet guy. And
you know what's crazy? Is that I feel like Artem Lobov has a bigger following.
He does.
Comes from the same gym.
By far.
And he's shitty.
He's
Nelson,
a solid fighter, but he's like 15-16 at this point.
But you have Gunnar Nelson, who's a phenomenal fighter, can take a fight anywhere, and he's really, really good. Same gym, basically same style, I think, but he's just quiet. Exactly.
And he had the loss to Damian Maia, where he essentially just engaged Damian Maia in a jiu-jitsu fight.
Yeah,
although Gunnar's a black belt,
everybody's going to lose that.
Exactly. Although Gunnar's a black belt,
That's one of those fights you go out there and say, I'm going to prove something, and like the guy's just better than you.
Yes,
yeah, the guy's just better than you.
You know, I would like to say if I went out there in a wrestling match against Jordan, if it was a fight and I'm like, hey, I'm going to fight Jordan Burroughs, I'm going to out wrestle him, it ain't going to happen.
No, you don't have a prayer.
And that's about the level difference between a Gunnar Nelson and a Damian Maia. So he lost that one, and then he had the weird loss to Ponzinibbio where the Pons poked his damn eyes out, and Gunnar.
The Pons might be good. We have to say that now. The Pons might be good.
No, he's a solid fighter, but he's not knocked Gunnar Nelson out in a minute and a half. Solid fighter. He poked his damn eyes out, and Gunnar's just being the guy that he is, just said, no, I don't need to stop, and then just ran into a punch because he couldn't see. So he's had those 2 losses. Other than that, to be honest, he's one of my top 3-4 guys in that division. So,
I agree.
The Brazilian Cowboy, Oliveira, super fun fighter, super good on top, bottom, everywhere. But I think Nelson gets him. The only thing we're worried about Nelson is he posted a picture on Instagram the other day. He's looking like a baby Arnold Schwarzenegger, whereas he was always kind of a little. He was a 70-pounder that they always talk about could go to 55 because he had a little chub on him. Well, now he looks like a baby Arnold Schwarzenegger. We got to worry about USADA issues.
Yeah, no, that's.
He may be using some good creatine powder.
Hey, does not matter. If once you cash your ticket, guys, bets off.
Yeah.
Okay, cash the ticket as soon as the fight's over. Don't wait a week until they turn it over to a no contest. Just take it right up to the ticket. So last fight we'll talk about here, lightweight matchup. Actually should be a fun one. Whenever you're looking at it, as far as like maybe the most action, Jimmy Manawa opens as a minus 210 favorite to Thiago Santos. Plus 175. Should be a lot of action. Should be
light heavyweight, right?
Light heavyweight, okay. Yes. I don't know if I said that.
You said light. I think you said lightweight, and I.
Oh yeah, they would smash
Jimmy
all the heavyweights.
And I was like, oh my god, wait a second.
No, yes, light heavyweight. Sorry if I misspoke there. Who do you have in this fight? Who do you think's gonna
win? You know what? I'm gonna go Santos. He's been looking to get a career resurgence. Not that his career was bad at 85, but I think 205 is a much better fit for him. And all around, I feel like ground-wise and everything, he's better than Manoa. Manoa, if you guys don't know him, he's a really, 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 really tough kickboxer. He is a touch chinny, though. He's had some stone cold knockouts of himself. So as long as Santos doesn't just engage in a straight kickboxing fight, I feel like he could probably scoop up a pretty solid win here. And jumps him right up there in that 205.
Yeah, no, I actually agree there. I do like the pick, Thiago Santos. That brings us to Shackelford's Lock Dog of the Week, Thiago Santos. So just a little news and notes that we have here before we wrap this show up. It came out, Israel Adesanya will take on Anderson Silva. Should sell a ton of pay-per-views. Should be a fun fight. Gut check. How do you think this fight will be worth it?
Yeah, man.
I think Anderson Silva wins.
I don't think so.
I think he does.
If this was Anderson 10 years ago, 5 years ago, I say it's going to be the fight of the history books for stand-up fighters. But we've seen him dropped a few times. He's definitely not quite as fast as he used to be, which is a big thing for him. Man, Adesanya, this fight actually weirds me out a bit. I don't know why they're doing it. They're putting basically Israel Adesanya is the 2019 version of Anderson. It's like they're putting Model 2 against Model 1 here. Man, I almost feel bummed for Anderson, but then I think, no, this is Anderson Silva, like the Spider, like one of the best to ever do it. I shouldn't feel bummed for him. He's getting a shot at the new Spider. Like, fun fight. It'll be very fun to watch. It was a bit of a head scratcher for me, but it's going to be fun as hell.
Yeah, no, I think it'll be a really fun
Stylebender
fight.
versus the Spider, man.
But the only reason why I'm saying Anderson's going to win that fight is because we've seen these savvy vets, man. Like, these savvy vets know how to win fights down the stretch. And I think this is going to be a super fun fight. Obviously, once the odds come out, they'll probably try to prove me wrong with that. Because I think
I would like to see the odds.
latency, try to find the odds on that. Israel Adesanya versus Anderson Silva.
I think Anderson's probably a hefty dog.
I do too. I do too. I think it would be kind of similar to the Tyson Pedro Shogun, where we have like a plus 500 dog. Might be able to get a little cash in on that. But I think that'll be a fun fight. So maybe the weirdest bit of news. You ran me through it before we basically opened up the show. Go ahead and talk about what we had talked about.
Let me pull up her name. She's got a little bit tough name to say here. So there's a young lady that fights in the UFC. She has a big fight coming up with Paige Van Zandt. Well, the girls has recently
Rachel Ostovich. Rachel Ostovich.
So, look, man, I don't want to sound like a sexist guy. She's hot. She's a good-looking chick. Obviously, Paige Van is also a good-looking chick. They're both very good fighters. So they were scheduled to fight, and people are like, this is the two best-looking women ever to fight, just kind of making it weird. Well, the Ostovich, she got into a fight with her husband. Her husband beat her up. She had a fractured orbital. They canceled the fight. Well, then another doctor saw her, said she was okay to fight. Fights back on, and she does a really good long post saying, yes, I was physically assaulted, but I feel like I have to take this fight. I have to stand up for all the women out there that have been abused or have been abused in the past or are being abused now. And it's just making this really powerful statement like, this guy beating the shit out of me isn't gonna end my career, isn't gonna define me. And then the UFC just comes out yesterday and says on the same card that these two girls are fighting, which Paige Van Zandt also in her, I want to say her high school life, she had a sexual assault incident. She's also one of those girls that's real, girl power, really inspiring to a lot of women. So you got these two super inspiring women. They announced that Greg Hardy will be making his UFC debut on the same card as those two girls.
What a black eye for the UFC.
It's so goofy. It's so nearsighted. It's so they so blindly made that adjustment to that card by throwing Hardy on there. I expect him to be moved. That's how much blowback they're getting on social media.
It's deserved.
For sure. I also told you I believe that is the first ESPN card. So we're switching over to ESPN at the beginning in January, I believe. So ESPN, they're going to be on the streaming service of ESPN, which is like $5 a month. And
that's what Latency was talking. Latency actually talked about that on Monday's show about how it's totally worth it. You get all this free, all this stuff for $5.
Yeah, you get so much content. You get all the 30 for 30s. You get like every ESPN special.
When we first talked about it, we were laughing because it was like the professional, the PGA, and there was like some other random league, and then the UFC was signed up. And I think Leighton said, like, hold on, there's going to be other stuff. By the time they really roll it out, it's actually going to be pretty good.
Yeah, it's awesome. Chael Sonnen has a show on there with somebody else.
Oh, Ariel Helwani, yeah.
Yeah, sure.
I heard that show.
Ariel and the Bad Boy.
Yeah,
yeah, that's what it's called.
I heard that was pretty good. I forgot about that.
Shows on there you can only get on there. It's neat. It's
only like $5, so that's
$60 a year.
So they'll do some cards on there, but this card, I think, unless I'm wrong, I think it's just on regular ESPN. It's the first card on. You just turn on whatever. In my head, I automatically said 32.
Are they the headliner for that fight?
No, but they're only like 2 or 3 down.
Wow.
I forget what the headliner was. I'll have to look that up real quick. But just total.
That's not knowing your surroundings.
Oh man, just not good at all. Not good at all.
Ever since Greg Hardy this experiment came about, like, we said there was something fishy. Then we watched his fights for the Contender Series, and then we knew something was fishy. Like, this guy was obviously, like, they handpicked his opponents for him to win. Like, it was as blatantly obvious as you could get. Then they get the deal with ESPN, and they're going to go ahead and run with it with Greg Hardy. And Greg Hardy is on your first show with a fight that will basically be the empowerment of women. You know what I'm saying? Like, this fight, like, will have in both corners, their pre-fight show will not be them standing there throwing strikes, talking like a normal fight goes. Like, no. It's going to be all about the backlash and all this bad stuff that they have overcome, and how, you know, they're overcoming obstacles to be there, and it's going to be this great story. And, like, honestly, people want to see that. Like, we want to see people overcome obstacles like this, especially in an era where we just saw one of the best running backs in the NFL today get released for domestic violence. Like, we know that is bad. And as a society, this might be the first time as a society that we have realized that domestic violence is a horrible, horrible thing. And then right in the middle of all this, where we're moving in the right direction, we step ourselves back 50 years. And we put Greg Hardy on the same card as this fight. That is absolutely horrible. I don't think Greg Hardy belongs in the UFC. No. As a fighting standpoint, he's not very good.
There might
and
be
then,
a chance
as far as
I
just
could
a
beat
bad,
those guys.
yes, I 100% agree. And then not just, and if you look at it from a fighting standpoint, it doesn't make any sense. Greg Hardy's awful. And then you look at it as a PR standpoint with a guy who's just had these accusations against him, which are 100% true. You cannot change my mind on that. And then you want to throw him on there, like, it makes no sense from any way you look at it, and it's absolutely horrible. This is as big as a black eye as the UFC's had in a long time.
I lied to you. They are the main event.
Oh, wow.
So the main event, that, you know, the two girls, it's the January 19th. It's in Brooklyn. It's on ESPN Plus. It's the very first card on ESPN Plus. Headlined by Paige Van Zandt, Rachel Ostovich. You got Bilal Muhammad, Jeff Neal, Glover's on there. A couple other names that, you know, a few people might know, and then Greg Hardy. Yeah, that's a black eye.
And especially with the main event, like, we're gonna see the build up of this from the opening gun. Like, the opening, it's going to be basically PVZ on one side, Ostovich on the other, talking about how they've overcome all this stuff, and then that's going to basically open up this show. You understand that, right? Like, that will be what opens up this show.
And I imagine the announcers, you know, when that main event's happening, they'll probably, you know, unless the fight just is a barn burner from the first second on, there'll be, as always, there's some low spots in fights. What do you think they're going to talk about?
Dude, I don't even think...
You know, Paige Van Zandt wrote this book about, you know, coming back from all this stuff, this and that. Oh, by the way, you know, a month and a half ago, Ostovich's husband beat her up. There will be talk of it's a great way to sell it. It's a great way to make those girls' popularity go up, and it's a great way to tell their story. But then 3 fights before, they're gonna be talking about, you know, how Greg Hardy's making his powerful comeback from adversity, when his adversity was him being a dickhead.
Yeah, I agree. It makes no sense to me. It does.
For the millionth time, it shows that the people that are running the UFC right now have they don't have their finger on the pulse of anything, really. Not
they
the
don't,
MMA community.
Dude, they don't have a clue.
Not the mainstream community. They are 100%. They are a group of investors that bought a sports league, and it kind of reminds me a little bit of basketball right here.
Yes.
You know, they're just like, we're going to do whatever we can to get the most eyes on this ESPN deal. And really, what's the most eyes they could get to just a regular ESPN audience? Greg Hardy. It's some guy that used to be a pro athlete that everybody knows in another sport that they're going to have to try and steal him over.
You know, and honestly, like, if you throw Greg Hardy on a card, I don't like it. I really don't. But and you talked about it, like these guys obviously don't understand the direction that the UFC's going. Like they've been making matchups like left and right that are just absolutely atrocious. They don't have a sense of reading the room whenever it comes to the MMA community. But whenever it comes to reading the room of a people community, humanity. Like this is obvious. This is something you don't do.
No.
And I'll cut you some slack. If you make bad fights your whole first 3 years owning an organization, I'll cut you some slack.
Yeah.
But whenever you do something as dumb as this, there's
somebody's got to get
no way
fired,
up.
right?
There's no way up.
Yeah, somebody in that office is like the paper boy, the mail dude's running around the mail office right now. They're gonna fire his ass. We're like, look, man, sorry,
You're our fault.
Somebody's got to go.
Yeah.
You're done.
Setting humanity back 50 years.
Yeah, this is bad.
Thank you, UFC.
This is bad.
Anything else before we wrap this show up?
Enjoy the fights this weekend. There's some. We've had a lot of cards in a row. To be honest, on our picks, I feel like we're probably about 50-50, which isn't good. That pisses me off. But this weekend, for the first time, I feel like in a couple weeks, maybe a month or so, we're getting a really, really solid top to bottom card that's going to be fun.
Yeah, I agree. I think this will be an actually really, really good fight. Just to kind of give you guys the direction we're heading, I think we're going to be 3 weeks out after this from the return of John Jones. Leighton C., did you ever find the odds on the Israel Lasagna Anderson Silva fight?
No, unfortunately not. My sportsbook don't have posted yet. However, it does have several UFC features. A few good ones on here. Conor McGregor and Donald Cerrone.
Oh, wow.
John Jones, Cormier. John Jones, Brock Lesnar. Tom Woodley, Covington. But the two that caught my eye most were Conor McGregor, Floyd Mayweather. That one's bound me on here. And the other one is Khabib and Floyd Mayweather.
So I have
If they were to fight in an MMA match, Khabib would be a minus 900 favorite. That's not minus $1 million.
Should be.
Yes.
I've seen fight before with Bone Jones who had like minus 1,200 before.
So my question is, why do they jump? Why do those bookies throw out fights that, aren't even?
Because somebody's talking to somebody, and someone hears something like, oh wait, that fight might happen.
Do they just jump on it just to get on the action early?
Yeah,
just
probably.
Thing?
Same thing like Tito Ortiz and Chuck Liddell. It happened to fucking happen.
And you just throw.
it just happened to happen. After you told me that Chuck would win the fight,
I did not.
You told me you would take Chuck. You said on this podcast you would take Chuck.
We're going to have to go back and listen to that. Because I remember being like, you didn't listen to me making that bet.
You said on this podcast that Chuck Liddell. I wouldn't just blindly bet Chuck Liddell.
Yes, you did. You
heard the name Chuck Liddell and you went all over it.
You bastard.
I found something.
Both said Chuck would win that fight, actually.
I found something where they're like projecting where the odds will be. It'll be like, this is no odds set in stone. Minus 550 for Adesanya, plus 400 for Silva. The odds have not been released, but that's what they're projecting them at. But yeah,
we'll see.
Leighton would blindly bet on Chuck Liddell any day of the week. I do believe that.
Nope.
But while I was searching that, they did say that this is like the LeBron versus Jordan matchup, where if you put LeBron against Jordan 1-on-1 today, what it would look like. So
yeah, maybe not that long of a spread. Maybe Jordan when he played for the Wizards.
Yeah, there we go.
He could still ball, but
in limited capacity.
Yes.
Anything else before we wrap this show up?
No, guys. Have a good weekend.
All right, and on that note, for Drake, for Leighton C., and Mr. Shackelford Dippers, as always, stay saucy.